Hi, and welcome to AGD459 New Media. This is Project 2, Machine Illustration. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to do 3 different illustrations using 3 different techniques using open source software like Stipple Generator, and then we'll use Photoshop and then Illustrator to make outline and stippled drawings using different techniques. So here's the brief. Create 3 A3 Illustrator files with a combination of lines and stipples using your own photos or one of the supplied architectural photos of the UAE as given by Professor Marco Sosa. You'll do 3 illustrations using the following techniques. Combining trace and stipple with a motif in the background, do an outline and stipple. Illustration using 2 spot colors. Number 2, using trace and stipple, but separate sections for different colors. You can use stipple and or outline for any of those knockout colors. And then what we're going to do is that in the third one, we're going to take color, and we're going to take color and put it over a black and white version of our photo, and then we're going to separate the CMYK channels, create line art from the black channel, and then create stipple art to create a false separation file using the stippling. So of course you'll have different colors on different layers, and submit each as an Illustrator file, AGD459, Project 3, either 1, 2, or 3, and your name ID.ai. And you'll submit all 3 as a zip file, AGD459 P3, name ID.zip. Here's the workflow. So we're using Photoshop to make our grayscale images for processing, and this is something that's very important. We think that we're working with color, but what happens is that since we're working with a pen plotter that uses pens, in only using one color, the pen plotter thinks everything's black and white, or actually just thinks it's lines. So really what it is that we're going to be taking and processing everything as grayscale images. We'll be taking out sections, we'll be taking channels out, and then converting those to grayscale, and then having those go to the machine. So that's where we're at there. With the first tutorial piece, you'll see what you'll be able to do with that, and we're converting the thing to black and white. But you'll see where I'm starting to start removing parts of the image so that we can do some really interesting manipulations with it. Okay, so actually the next part of the workflow is that we use Illustrator to create layers and play with tracing, and this is the only place where I'm going to let you use auto trace, but the thing is there's all kinds of different ways to do it, and actually you'll see in the next video I actually used Sketchart, and it worked out really well. I usually use 3 color, so we'll talk about that more. And then there's an open source program using Java and the programming language processing called StippleGen. And what does it create? Stipples. It creates dots from any JPEG or PNG, and that's very important. And you have to make sure those are also in RGB space too. You can't send it CMYK stuff. And then so what happens is that you'll create stipples, which then you'll put on additional layers above your line work in Illustrator. So as you see here, it's like you'll set up a layer, you'll put your line work, you'll take another layer, put your stipple work on top of, and put your layers of stipple work on it, and you'll just assign colors to all of them, and you'll create a false color version of this that you'll give me, and then I'll just use my pens and the machine here, and we will generate the artwork. And then that's it, generate the artwork. That's the Axidraw 3. What is this thing actually? So Stipple Gen, free open source software. It'll be on the teaching materials part of the website. And then you can make stippled art and then save it as SVG vector art. This is the machine that we're using. It's actually, this is the A4 version. I have an A4 and an A3. We'll be using the A3, and this is a plotter that you can put any pen you want in, and this is how I'm doing all this work. And I mean, you could put glitter pens, whatever in it. It's fantastic. So going to examples, I think this is one of Zeneb's. Anyway, what happens is that she went to the Alkarama memorial, took the photo of it, and then what she did is that she made line art and then did a motif and then put that in the background, and then we assigned another color to that, and it turned out really well. And this is what you're doing for the first project. So, and this is another example. This is the hotel out on Yas Island. You can see there's actually 3 layers. There's some stippling here with the hotel, the line work, which turned out really well, and then you've got the motif work going on here in the background. So it's really 3 layers, and this is still, pretty much what your first project is. Your second project, this gets really cool. So what happens is that what we're doing is that we're taking, this is actually a highly modified version of where I grew up in Canton, Ohio. What we did is that I basically took out the area with the trees and had those as a grayscale, processed those, used those as a line. Then I took the lawn out and I processed that with line and stipple, and then I used a gold pen on that, and then I did another set of stippling for the sky. So this actually has about 6 or 7 layers to it. So this is the second one. And then the last one, see, this is a technique I think is really interesting, and actually kind of goes back to older forms of printing for illustration. This is the Capitol Gate in downtown Abu Dhabi, and then so what happens is that I took and just really turned up the saturation on this, and then sometimes what I'll do is I'll take this and make it black and white, and I'll just do a color overlay with some really crazy psychedelic thing. And then what we'll do is then take the resulting image, really turn up the saturation, and then what we'll do is turn it to CMYK and then pull apart the channels, and then we take those grayscale channels and then we send those to, we manipulate those, put those together in Illustrator, and then we send those to the machine. Actually, not exactly, because it works with Inkscape, which is open source Illustrator. So the thing is that you'll give me these. I'll just take maybe 2-3 minutes a piece and put them over into Inkscape, and then I'll just run the robot on those. So here's an example process, and then you'll see this more over in the next video. So this is one of Professor Marco's pieces. This is the ADNOC building in Abu Dhabi, and you can see that I brought I brought this into Photoshop. And so the first thing you have to do is you have to turn this thing into a black and white image. And what you do is that you go into Image, Adjustments, Desaturate, and you turn to black and white. And then the other thing that I did is that I also used brightness and contrast, and I used what they call that little legacy box, because it's much harsher than the than the later version. But you can see here, I pulled this out and made it almost into black and white art. So this is perfect. So we save this off as a JPEG or a PNG. And actually, one thing you need to do when you're working with Stipple generator, you need to save things always in a landscape format. It's just because of the fact that that's just the way it's written. So you just take it, you rotate it, save it. Then if you're doing something that's a portrait format like this, you just go ahead and rotate it again and then process it. So, okay, so here's the Photoshop file, and then trace it in Illustrator. I put it on a A3 piece of paper in Illustrator, and then I start playing with the traces. This is how it looks with 3-color. And the thing is that there's a couple of things that you'll see in the next video that I'm skipping a couple steps here. What I wind up doing is I wind up doing a lot of expand and ungroup, just because you know, I want to get rid of all the fills, right? So I wind up filling with, you know, that red slash with nothing, and then I basically either assign a color or black to stroke, and then usually about one or two pixel width. And you know what, that doesn't really matter because of the fact that when we send this to the Axidraw, it's going to be, you know, you're using a pen, so it really doesn't matter. But it's just the way that it's going to look like on the screen. And the thing is that this is also an illustration form that, you know, you can use you know, for print too. So I mean, it's but we're just making these with the robot just because of the fact that I want to actually have these as drawings. So here's the image that you're working with. See, as I said, I flipped it to landscape format and then put into Stipple generator. The one thing that is really kind of important, and you'll see this in the next video, is the number of stipples, and then also the minimum dot size, and then the dot size range. That's everything to this, and you would just want to try to get the most interesting image you can. Then you save it as a Stipple file, and I'll show you some other versions of this if you want to. And then so then you take that SVG that you created in StippleGen, and then you put it over your trace in Illustrator, and there you go. That's what you have. That's the first assignment. So I go over this again with another image over in the next video. So that's kind of what that is. So basically, for next time, in this case Thursday, I want you to find 3 images that you want, either from the database or on your own. Download Stipple generator from the learning resources section, and start playing with the images and try the techniques in this PowerPoint and in the next video, and get ready to produce on Thursday. And the thing is that the due date for all of these is going to be April 9th. So we're going to get done with the motion graphics and the Stipple stuff all on April 9th. So, okay, thanks so much, and we will see you in the next video.